Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Virtual Ninja Show. My name is Heike, and today we have Patrick back. Patrick, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Happy to be back on the show here. I'm Patrick David. I'm with our customer experience team focusing on Microsoft Purview space. So excited to be back on the show today with you.
Yes, and for those that haven't seen the episode, we did one together with a few other people on a Copilot prompt book where Purview was also part of it. But today, our focus is only Purview, and we are looking into a few of the exciting announcements that we made at Ignite. Patrick, what was your favorite announcement?
Probably one of the biggest announcements that I liked was our Data Security Posture Management, or DSPM, announcement that we had. Really, this is a showcase scenario that customers have been asking us for a while, right? Being able to understand what they have in their environment, where their data posture management needs are, right? And understanding how to protect that over time. So it was a great announcement. I'm really excited to talk about that today.
So I think let's start with it and drill deeper into it. So can you again repeat what was announced? What was the long name?
Yeah, us and our long name. So Data Security Posture Management, or DSPM for short, because we like our acronyms here at Microsoft. So it's a real great feature for customers either that have been with Microsoft and in the Purview space for a while, understanding what current posture they have in protecting their data, or if you're new coming into the Microsoft stack, understanding what data you have out there that's not being protected, right? Whether you don't have data loss prevention policies or it's not being labeled or encrypted. So it's a great solution to kind of get started.
That was my next question because, I'm not so familiar with the whole Purview world. But I know posture management from my endpoint, right? So, this setting hasn't been turned on, or here's a vulnerability, or all these kind of things. So help me understand, what are weak data? Like, what are the individual settings that are important to apply on files, I would assume we're talking about?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this solution itself kind of gives you an understanding of where you have and what data you currently have in your environment, whether that be in SharePoint, Exchange, and whether it be sensitive, right? So containing sensitive information types, for example, credit card numbers, social security numbers here in the US, or custom sensitive information types that you've created, right? So sensitive information that you might have for your organization, identifying where that might be, and then understanding whether or not that information is labeled and protected, either with data loss prevention policies, right, preventing that data from being exfiltrated out, or having proper labeling, highly confidential with encryption on it, for example, or understanding where you might have gaps in your organization, then providing some recommendations around how to protect that is really what the data security posture management is for.
So was there something already before in Purview that helped you understand, of course, the labels that you can apply, and you see files that have no labels, and now this has been packaged and wrapped into something like a dashboard? Or is this also new that you finally can see what files are not protected and have sensitive data in it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this is a combination of three existing solutions, really, right? So we've got our data loss prevention solution, which is really about protecting data from being exfiltrated out. Our information protection solution is really about labeling, understanding what sensitive information you might have in your documentations. And then our insider risk management solution, which is around understanding user behavior, user analytics, what's occurring with that data. And so we're combining kind of all three of those solutions together to give you that understanding of what's going on in your environment. So before, you might have to go to multiple solutions to kind of get that picture of what you might have in your organization, where with this, we're providing a kind of single place that you can go and get that understanding and start protecting that data.
Okay. And at Ignite, we announced the preview of it, or yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So at Ignite, we announced the preview of this feature.
So I would assume the licensing is still a work in progress, or do we already know how this will be made available to our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. So like any preview feature, or most preview features, I should say, licensing will come out when we make this generally available. So right now it's available for customers that have our E5 compliance SKU or security E5 SKU, but our final licensing will come out when we generally release this.
Perfect. So let's have a look how that looks like,
Yeah,
Patrick. I
let's
want to
take a
see
look.
it.
So here I'm in the Microsoft Purview solution, and you'll notice there's a new area here for data security posture management that we can click into. Now, the first time we go into this solution, if you do not have analytics turned on, as I mentioned, this is a combination of insider risk management, data loss prevention, and also our information protection solution. It's going to ask you to turn on analytics for these three solutions. So I can click on that. It's going to tell me, hey, we're going to turn on analytics, and then we can move forward turning that on. Now, if you haven't had this turned on, it's going to take a couple of days, so between 1 to 3, depending on the amount of data that you might have in your organization, before we start generating some of these insights in here. Once your insights have been generated, right, we can come in and we have some top security recommendations here. We also can see some reports available to us as an organization. And if I click on one of these recommendations here, it's going to tell me, one, what the recommendation is, right? In this case, it's Project Assibian. It's also going to help me create my policies to kind of protect this data. And I can create either insider risk management or data loss prevention policies, or I can choose one or the other. And here it's kind of walking me through kind of creating these different policies where I can kind of customize this if I wish, or I can just quickly get started with creating these policies. It's going to go ahead and create these policies in the background for me. And then within a couple minutes, I'll be able to see those policies in the respective solutions there.
So now after you created that rule policy or something, what is that policy doing?
Yeah, so in the case of this one, I'm creating not only a data loss prevention policy here in simulation mode, I'm also creating an insider risk management policy to look for that data. In this case, I'm looking for certain indicators in the insider risk space. So data being copied to SharePoint files, downloaded and exfiltrated. I'm prioritizing particular content. In this case, a password is my priority content here.
This is a lot in there. Like there's a lot of indicators that are being included in one specific policy here. And then is that something that will now run or act on the move? So how is this being now triggered, the policy?
Yeah, so this is just like any insider risk management policy or data loss prevention policy that you would have. So in the case of data loss prevention, here we are doing a simulation mode. So it's not actually enforcing the actions here. You can choose to do that as you go through here. For the insider risk, it is going to start looking for that trigger event that's occurring. In this case, the trigger event here is user performs some type of exfiltration type activity, and then we'll generate an alert in insider risk management for this potential violation.
Ah. Okay, so and then I see you have another top recommendation, but then there is probably more recommendations, right? So you have them probably all, and they will tell you if you turn this on, your posture will turn up, like raised by like 80% or 20%. Like, is this similar to the other posture management solutions that we have?
It is, yeah. So there's a recommended actions section here that we could go to and see kind of the recommended actions for the organization, our top 30 or top 20 recommendations that an organization might have. And you can look at those and see over time. We'll also jump in a little bit further and talk about some of the trends. So you can see your posture over time, right? As you're creating these policies and you're putting these protections in place, how that's doing over time. So you understand exactly how you're protecting your organization.
Yeah. And you know, Patrick, we all love these kind of reports because it shows the investments that a company puts into security, the security team, the tools, and how things are improving. So this is always a good report to show to the executive level of things are improving.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into some of these reports that are available here, right? So building on that. So we've got these analytic reports. Here we can see high level Exchange, OneDrive, Teams, devices, SharePoint, where I might have data. And I'm going to dive into one of these reports, right? So this is our data risk report for unprotected sensitive data. And here I can see I've got quite a bit of unprotected data living in my SharePoint environment. So if I click on this, I can get a high level understanding of what data is out there. So I've got over 31,000 pieces of data in my SharePoint environment, matching the different classifiers that I have here. And then I can also see labels that I have applied in here, right? These are labels in this organization that don't have any encryption or any protection on them. So I've got highly confidential files sitting out here, highly confidential all employees and specific people here. So we can get a report of the data here, and then I'm going to jump back. And we also have another report here. So not only data, right, sitting there, but also understanding what our users are doing with that data. So we have a report here for users performing exfiltration activities on sensitive data that are potentially risky. So we've got different risk behaviors here, departing users, priority users that we've set up, potential disgruntled users that we've set up in our insider risk management solution. So these would be things or policies you've already created in insider risk management, and that's how we're flowing in these potential risks with users here.
This is so complex. I look at Microsoft, and I mean, I work with my vendors who have an NDA, and they, you know, upload those videos, for instance. They need a slide deck from me. It is labeled. So I have to also downgrade the label and upload it to their external SharePoint site. So how can someone understand what is really critical? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that's a challenge with any organization, and working with customers that deal in the insider risk management space, especially, it's understanding what the risk is with those potential activities, right? For some activities, it might be business use cases that are approved, right, and they're accepting a potential risk associated with that. For other organizations, it's stitching together kind of that activity, right? And what is that, right? So if you're downgrading a label and then sharing it out, what was actually in that particular file, right? Was it very sensitive intellectual property information, right, that's being shared out? Or is this something that we're sharing with an NDA type customer? So I think there's different ways of sharing as we're looking, and even Microsoft, right, with our future initiative, right? Like, we're protecting and we're learning from these different processes. So,
but is that something that someone goes and looks all day long and checks out the files? Is this something that they do once a week? How often do you set your policies? How often do you go through these kind of recommendations? What is you work with customers, like, how are they doing it?
yeah, so the data security posture management is new, right? So we are not quite sure how folks are going to use this, how often they're going to come into it. I think that's some learnings that we'll get from this preview. But from an insider risk DLP, it depends on the organization, I'll say. Some of my customers that I work with have teams of people looking at alerts for insider risk management, going in there every day and looking. Other organizations that I work with might have folks that check them alerts out maybe once a week or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of my more mature customers, I'll say, have insider risk management policies, but then use that to enforce their data loss prevention policies and enforce blocking, right, for that sensitive information. And they know once they've got their DLP policy set up that that's being the enforcing mechanism behind that. And so they're not having to really triage those alerts because they have set them up to block particular activities.
Okay. Do you see in your reports also reports that show how your posture improved?
Yeah, so we have some trend reports also that are available that we can see how we're trending over time, both with how sensitive our data is and how we're labeling that over time, or how you're enforcing new policies that are starting to protect data. So we definitely have those. So there's one other report that I want to jump into. We know that AI is super important, right? And we've done a lot of work in the Purview space, the security space, of understanding how you're using AI in your organization. And so there's actually a tie into our data security posture management, and our AI hub, which was the previous name, has also been renamed to Data Security Posture Management for AI. And so we have a report here that we can dive into, and this is going to tell us our AI activities within our organization, both internally, right? So M365, Copilot, or even our third-party AIs such as Bart and Gemini and others that you might have, or even some homegrown solutions for AI that you have in your organization. So here we can quickly get to that and see that. And then we also have reports in the AI space, so you can kind of trend and see over time how your AI posture is in your organization.
Cool. That brings me to the next topic. You did announce something new about Copilot for security?
We did, yeah. So actually, that's a great segue right into the data security posture management. We also have Copilot in data security posture management. If you have the right views for Copilot for security, now we have the ability to integrate here with Copilot right within data security posture management. So here you can see I've got some recommendations of some Copilot prompts that I might want to ask. And we've got this open-ended experience that where customers can kind of interact with the data security posture management. So I might ask something like, hey, which sensitive files are shared outside my organization in SharePoint? And Copilot's able to go out there, pull the files that were shared, and then I also have the ability to follow up on that, right? So I might want to ask what labels were applied to these particular files. And so here I can see the project recipient label, the recipient acquisition file had general labels. I can see my resume had a non-business label on it, but was also detected as part of being shared out. And then I can also provide additional questions, right? So I might want to say, hey, provide a list of all the labels downgraded and exfiltrated with the file's project recipient in this case. I can ask Copilot. Copilot's going to go and look at the last 30 days and understand where I've had activity that has been downgraded or exfiltrated with a particular project recipient label on it here.
Wow. I'm just trying to calculate how many hours that would someone require. I mean, we saw earlier it was like 36,000 files, something, and 28,000 files just on SharePoint. And there's many other places probably in that company to find out what were the labels. Oh my goodness. So this is so useful and a time saver. And I think nobody wants to have secrets leaked. So extremely important to have an eye on it and understand what's going on in the environment.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that we do, so tying kind of these solutions together, right? Back to your point of like what users get in here, what do they do with this? Is someone constantly looking at this? One thing that we have with insider risk management and data loss prevention is adaptive protection. So something you might want to do here is set up an adaptive protection policy, right? So that dynamic risk can be prevented or blocked. And so I can actually use Copilot here. Maybe I'm not familiar with adaptive protection, right? One of the recommendations might be, hey, maybe create an adaptive protection policy. So you could ask Copilot, what is adaptive protection? And go out, tell you what adaptive protection is. And then we can see a recommendation here to set up an adaptive protection policy. And then I can get more information about what it is. And right from within data security posture management, I can set up that adaptive protection policy. Now my organization is protected with that sensitive data dynamically right from one solution, right? We used to have to go to multiple solutions to do this. So.
Yeah, this is so cool. This is, I mean, we are getting there, right? So this is just amazing.
Yeah.
So Patrick, we had a few more Copilot announcements at Ignite. So I think there was also a little bit more for Purview. What exciting has been announced?
Yeah, we announced a couple new solution capabilities within the Purview stack. And one of these is the data loss prevention solution. So we have the ability to have insights on our DLP policies, right? So we know a lot of organizations have multiple DLP policies, maybe have been created over time, but maybe not understanding what coverage they have or where they might have gaps in the organization. And that's really what this Copilot Insights for DLP really gives you, right? So when you're in the solution, working within your policies, you've got this new Copilot capability at the top. And then you can click and select either one, two, all your policies and get insights about those particular policies. Copilot's going to come on the side and tell you what the insights are. And so here I can see from my particular policies, I've got an understanding of what the coverage is. I can see what my policies are looking for, what data locations they're looking at, in this case, SharePoint, OneDrive, Exchange, and Teams, what data they're looking at. Here I'm looking at sensitive information types. And so we can get insights about a particular policy. We can also then ask open-ended questions on this, such as, do these DLP policies cover OneDrive locations, or do these DLP policies cover PII information, for example? And so we're able to actually ask questions about our coverage of our DLP policies using Copilot. So you can imagine the time saving that this has, where someone would have to manually go through all the different DLP policies that they have to understand their coverage or lack thereof coverage.
So I see you say we can ask, so there is a prompt window. Is
Yeah.
this new, or was this in Purview before, that you could actually talk to Copilot from within the embedded experience and not hopping out in the standalone experience?
Yeah, so some of our capabilities have had this since GA, but we are making a common experience across the Purview stack here, where all experiences are going to have this open-ended prompt experience. If you're working within a solution that has skills, so in this case, DLP insights, right, we can ask questions about the insights. If we're on a solution, let's say data lifecycle management, where we don't have skills today, we will fall back to our knowledge base and we'll get learn documentation. So maybe you're trying to set up a DLP policy, you're trying to set up a data lifecycle management policy, and you're not sure how to do that. Instead of having to go search through the mountains of learn data that we have out there, right, we can use Copilot to help bring those insights right to us within the solution you're working in. We've also introduced some new capabilities in eDiscovery. So within eDiscovery, we can now summarize a case for an organization, right? So within eDiscovery, right, one of the things that we have is we've got this case, there's multiple searches, there's multiple holds that are taking place. And so we can use this to summarize a particular eDiscovery case. And when we do this, we're getting information about the different searches that are available, the review sets that are available for an organization for a particular eDiscovery search. Here we can see the jobs that are associated with this, the custodians, right? So what users are on hold. And then we can see any exports that are done and the status of those exports, right? Did they fail? Are they successful? We also have the ability to follow up and ask additional questions on this. So one example might be, how many hold policies have errors, right? That's super important to understand. If you've got custodians on hold and the hold policies are in an error state, that means we're not protecting that data, we're not holding that data. And so you can click this and get an understanding of what errors might be for a particular eDiscovery case that you have here. Not only that, but we also have the capabilities within an eDiscovery case, as we're doing searches, being able to summarize the search information on here. So instead of having to click on multiple screens, click and see different information, we can let Copilot kind of summarize this for us. We can get the information about a particular case. We can get the size of how much data is there, if there's any errors or duplicates set up for this. And I can also ask, like, how many items were unindexed, for example, right? Today, you'd have to go to multiple pages in order to do this. Copilot can quickly summarize that. In this case, there was no unindexed items here that I have.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what we want to see.
Perfect.
So I'm going to jump into another one here that we announced, and this is Copilot within Activity Explorer. So Activity Explorer within data loss prevention, we have the ability to integrate Copilot with that. And so we've got some Copilot capabilities, and this is actually right within the solution itself. We give some recommendations like, show me the top 5 activities in the past week, filter and investigate activities where you can fill in that particular activity. Maybe it's copy to USB, maybe it's downgrade a label, or maybe you're looking for certain files and want to understand what activity was occurring on those particular files. So Copilot's actually integrated right within there. So for example, if I click on show me the top 5 activities in the past week, I can get a quick count here. So you can see real quickly, I can get this information that would be very manual previously without Copilot in order to do this.
Yes, wow.
I can also then ask, maybe I want to find out information about a particular file, right? In this case, cardholder transaction logs, and what labels or what sensitive information does this particular file have in it? And so here I can ask Copilot. Copilot's going to go out there and reason over this particular file and understand that it contains a credit card number, a UAE identification card number in there. The other nice thing that we've introduced with this is the ability to ask kind of that natural language and then get a query back on this. So I can ask something like, hey, filter and investigate labels applied and modified activity with sensitive information, SC demo intranet and sensitive information types credit card numbers in the past 30 days. And it's going to generate the query that I need and pass that actually back over to the Activity Explorer, where I can modify this and click apply. And now I've applied that filter. So I've taken kind of that natural language that I needed, and I didn't have to fill in or know what filters I needed to apply, how to apply those filters. I've taken kind of that natural language and applied it back as a filter set here that I can quickly filter on. So real great capability.
This is kind of, for me, it's new in general, that experience that you can ask Copilot to change your view, like in the portal. That's pretty cool, neat.
Yeah, no, this is actually a capability that the team's been working on. We hope to really expand this, I think, across to different solutions, right? And be able to do this. I mean, where we see a lot of customers really liking Copilot is the ability to ask kind of that natural language and then convert that into what I need, right? I don't need to know how to create these filters or what filters. I know what I need to ask, right? And I can type that in and kind of go.
So I think
I got one more thing to show. One more. So let's talk about in DLP, right? So we've had for a while the ability to summarize a DLP alert with Copilot, right? So we've been able to get information about that particular alert. What we're bringing, what we've had in Insider Risk Management is the ability to follow up on that, right? So I want to dive in deeper. I want to understand more about a particular DLP alert. The summary is okay, right? But if I can get more data or more information about that, that really helps me in investigation. So we now have the ability within a DLP summary to follow up on that. So I might ask something like, what activity was performed on the data in this particular alert, or describe the sensitive information or file labels or data that triggered this particular alert. And so Copilot can go and actually do that, pull back more information, right? So now I'm within DLP, I'm actually hunting and getting more information about that. The other thing that we've done is we also have, in this case, the user, Natasha, has been marked as risky from Insider Risk Management. And we can actually summarize the user activity. So we've got the data risk, but now there's potential user risk also associated with this user, right? So they're high. I want to understand why or what activity they did. So I write within DLP and say, hey, summarize the user activity here. And we've got this user activity view, and now we've got that summary of the user activity. So we can see that this user's had some top risk factors in the last 30 days. We can see they've had some sequence activities that they've had, and where they've downloaded some files from OneDrive, renamed, and then emailed them out. And so I can get a better picture of what's actually occurring. So
wow. Yeah, also super, like the view, understanding what a certain user that is a risk user for whatever reason, it's like, can have multiple reason, but then having this all like in a very visible way, but also understandable language written, and not just like throw some files and numbers out there. Beautiful. Patrick, thank you so much for showing me what, like a few of the Ignite announcements were made when it comes to Purview. And I hope everyone was able to either attend Ignite or watch Ignite. If not, go back and you can watch the recordings. Patrick, again, thank you so much for being my expert on today's episode. And thanks everyone out there. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.